Welcome everyone to our next Urmusik and Art Salon, hosted by the Student Hotel. We will be presenting today a very talented artist and creative mind, CAIO AMON, all the way from Brazil.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're so glad to welcome you as part of our community tonight. Have you ever sat before a blank sheet of music paper and anxiously dreamt of filling it with music that dazzles everyone? Doesn't that sound like the beginning of all great music? Or does that paper even make a sound? Well, in the Western world, that paper is considered the fundamental first step of composing or writing serious music. Only subprime musicians, those illiterate musicians, jam and play music. Serious musicians write it. It's curious that during nationalism in the 19th century, the original 10 commandments, a set of legal jargon written in stone and handed to Chief Justice Moses on top of Mount Sinai, would be replaced by the 10 symphonies of Beethoven, the last of which, still today, we are waiting for the master to reveal. Other than Allegro, Andante, and Adagio, Beethoven's classic symphonies don't give a lot of legal advice. Nevertheless, lay people, those sitting in the audience, are tacitly expected to not disturb the organic whole of his instructions by clapping between symphony movements, and that the authority figures, musicians and conductors, should never claim to speak for the master, but to have the master speak through them. And a note of caution, don't even think of changing any of Beethoven's metronome markings. Of course, they are all way, way too fast, but he knows his glorious plan better than we do. What's good about the new law is that the only penalty for any of the above-cited offenses is a gentle breeze caused by the Pharisees shaking their heads in disapproval. So how did this paper idolatry replace the age-old orthodoxy of the muses? Why should a music's text be valued more than a music's live sound? Perhaps the finger can be pointed at the same sheet music publishing industry that first made Beethoven a household name. After all, if you have convinced your parents to splurge on a 50,000 euro piano, they will probably want you to stay interested in it for a few weeks. What better way to stay curious than displaying an open copy of the master's Sonata Opus 2 number 3 on the piano, so that on your way to the kitchen, you always glance at it and muse to yourself, now how in the master's name does one play that? So when you hear someone saying something like, I like music, I just don't understand it, you can be sure that they are talking about this mystical inked paper worship nonsense. If by chance they say that they do understand it, then you can be sure that they are not one of the believers. CAIO AMON started his career in music just like the rest of us. He played guitar in a band that covered the Beatles and Pink Floyd. When he grew up and it came time for him to get serious about music, he applied for admission to the conservatory. No, I'm not talking about the conservatory where non-indigenous plants are housed, but the conservatory that preserves classical music from the pernicious effects of market capitalism. The conservatory was founded with the mission of protecting the fragile faith of sheltered, high net worth youth from the dangerous music practices of the Gentiles. Inside the conservatory, musical plagiarism is a 4-letter word. Proper musical ideas must, in complete silence, be fixed in written form and never, ever resemble the musical ideas of any other composer, for that would be unoriginal music. and if it ends up selling, grounds for a copyright infringement lawsuit. After all, Beethoven never ever relied on Handel, Haydn, Mozart, etc. for musical ideas. By the way, that creative method is as unpleasant as it is boring, and it leads to a lot of terrible sounding music, much of which people may be forgiven for misinterpreting as noise. Luckily, CAIO survived the conservatory's baptism of fire, cum laude, and went on to brave an outside world filled with people who are serial music plagiarists, most of whom don't even know how to write their name on music paper. CAIO is here with us today, and just like that song not written by Madonna, has lived to tell. CAIO?
La ya ra ya, la ya ra ya ra ya, la ra ya ra la ya ra ra ya, la ya ra ya ra. Quem um dia soube o que é o amor, conhece bem a armadilha que é sofrer, perder a paz, chorar de dor porque cada dia promete a alegria de outro bem-querer. Quem alimentou a ilusão só para ver todas as cartas pelo ar, perder a voz, se embriagar do que cada dia promete a alegria de outro bem-querer. Mas quem aposta as fichas de saída não sabe o quanto a banca vai levar e a roleta gira. Não há quem vá afiançar e o preço é pago em lágrimas vertidas para quem quiser testemunhar. São poucos, são loucos que ouvem o meu cantar. Laia, 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 la laiara, laiara, laia, laiara, laiara, laia, 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 la laiara, laiara, laia, laia, laiara, la laiara, laiara, laia, laiara, laiara. La ra ya la ra ra la ya la ya la ya ra la ya ra.
Wow.
Woo!
Sounds dangerous.
Dangerous music, yeah.
So tell us, CAIO, where does this musical journey begin? When is it that you started music? How did you start to music? What gave you the attraction?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it had two beginnings, I could say, and the two beginnings are connected with two different instruments and two different music traditions. On one hand, my mother had a piano at home, and she would play Claude Debussy, this French composer. Sunday mornings, she would study some pieces, Clair de Lune, Rêverie, and some other pieces by Debussy. And that got me going into learning the piano, and I had some lessons. And so then began this journey towards classical music and a more West European tradition.
So when you
On the
say
other hand,
she played on Sundays, she would play this music, this was a pleasureful experience. Not like when I would hear my mom play the piano and she'd play some, I don't know, O Canada or something. So so this was a very nice experience. So you liked this music.
Yeah, sure. And I think this is important because in the end, I think we usually like what we are more or less familiar with. So being familiar with things is a good start to get to appreciate music or all kinds of arts. So yeah, I think this was the beginning of my interest in classical music. On the other hand, when I was like 12, 13, I started liking very much the Beatles. My father, he used to work out listening to an LP version of Let It Be. So he would yeah, just like put the record, and I would listen over and over to Let It Be. And when I was 12 and I started going after the Beatles albums, I was familiar already with this music. And so the Beatles led to Pink Floyd, that led to Yes. And so then this other branch of my musical interest began towards rock music, popular music. So, you
So,
know, you asked for a beginning, but I have two beginnings.
so really the piano attached to the mother side, classical music, and then the rock singing, playing guitar part from your dad.
Yeah, exactly. And later on, of course, came my interest in Brazilian music. And there's an interesting story about that because when I was 17, I went to Los Angeles to study sound engineering. And by that time, I wouldn't hear, I wouldn't listen to Brazilian music at all. I don't know why. I was listening to Pink Floyd or Bob Dylan or Jimi Hendrix, but I wasn't listening to Tom Jobim at all. And so I was in Los Angeles and I was in this recording session and they were recording an English version of Chega de Saudade. In English the title is No More Blues, which is a
Can you give us
huge standard.
a hint of how it sounds?
Yeah, yeah, sure. I think a lot of people know this song. Like, vai minha tristeza e diz a ela que sem ela não pode ser. Dizem numa prece que ela regresse, porque eu não posso mais sofrer. Chega de saudade, a realidade é que sem ela não há paz, não há beleza, é só tristeza e a melancolia que não sai de mim, não sai de mim, não sai. So I think everybody, this is the A part of the song. There's more. I really recommend, if you don't know this song, I really recommend getting to know it. It's by Tom Jobim, a huge composer. Sinatra recorded most of his songs, and it's an amazing musician. But so I didn't know the
So this would
song.
be considered the entrance of bossa nova, of the Brazilian
Yeah,
music, kind of a third stream into your musical being.
yeah, and you know, in fact, if you think of bossa nova, the way I see it is bossa nova is a sort of encounter between Brazilian music and like very popular music like samba music and this with Debussy. This is the way I see it because bossa nova is kind of is samba, but with other clothes, you know, like dressed more. I don't know, dressed like a more classical. Um,
And Caio, would you play us what is Debussy? What are you thinking about when you say this, Debussy? Would you be able
yeah,
to play some?
you know, I'm not a great pianist, and but Debussy for me sounds like this. Just let me get some volume going. So there is this color, you know. The way I hear it is there is like colorful music, chords with a lot of strange notes, but very
Mhm.
colorful.
It also
So
seems to create what they call that kind of sonic field. It's kind of this place you get lost. You feel like, oh, that's nice. I'll stay here for a while, and then it kind of
yeah,
changes. And then, and also when you're
exactly,
singing,
yeah,
when you're playing guitar, it also gives me that impression that someplace you're playing in the harmonies and the rhythm, and then oh,
yeah.
okay, I'm going to change, and then everyone, oh, okay, and then
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You know, it's interesting to talk about this connection of a place and music because this is exactly how I feel. Um, I like to inhabit some musics, you know. In first place, I don't think there is one music. I think there are several musics that share the medium of sound and use rhythm and notes and pitch and but it seems that the kind of the genres of music and the music traditions they create this sort of space and I really like to inhabit these spaces when I played yeah a chord such like as this. I'm immediately in some sort of space, and I can be here, and I can change that, and I can play that. So I think, yeah, you're right. It's a sort of a space. So
and it seems to
bossa
me
nova,
also
in a
that
way,
you bring to it this very physical approach that also when you play, I mean, you say you're not a very good pianist, but I mean, the way you communicate, that you pull the sound out of the piano, it's also very sensual, it's very physical, and I think it
hmm
translates very well through the computer. I can feel it,
all
you
right.
know, just like a conductor would. And the same thing when you're playing guitar, you know, there's this thing. So it seems to me, yeah, there's this very tactile,
Yeah.
sensual feeling that gives pleasure to you and to us.
Yeah, exactly. Because you have to let it invade you, right? To be able to appreciate and to be able to create. So I think yeah, it's important this connection. So well, I was in Los Angeles, like continuing the story. I was in Los Angeles in this recording session, and they were recording this song, very famous Brazilian song, and I was completely unaware of it, and I was listening the whole night. These people recording it, and they were recording in English, and only later on, like 4 years after that, I came across the song, and I said, "Whoa, man! This is like the anthem of Brazilian music," and I knew it, you know, and I got to know it in the English version by some Martinican woman recording in Los Angeles. It's really strange, but
So it's interesting.
from
So you went to Los Angeles and you're studying sound recording there.
yeah, exactly.
So it very much also ties into this idea of sonic fields, of that sensual understanding of music. So not so much something that's written on paper, but something that's very much shared, is very much communicated physically.
Yeah, exactly. And sound, you know, I think there's a very thin frontier or very feeble frontier between music and sound or noise. You know, this is something when you start working with music production and sound engineering, and you start seeing some sound effects, for example, sound effects in a movie. And in a lot of ways, they're in this frontier of music, noise, and I think this is very, very interesting to use in soundtracks and to open your ears for that. And I think my studies in sound engineering, they provided me with a more technical understanding of how to create this sort of stuff.
So classical music, Kai, moving on. So you're in
Yeah,
Los Angeles. Let's jump to the next phase of your life. I understand that
yeah,
you
yeah.
went to Amsterdam to this conservatory to get serious about music, to study classical music because now your pop music education was more or less complete. So you moved to Amsterdam, and
Mhm.
what happens then? How does this affect you and your musical being?
Yeah, I think was this studies in Amsterdam and studying in a conservatory was kind of for me it was sort of a journey of the hero, you know, and it was about like slaying the dragon, and the dragon was the conservatory because uh, being born in Brazil. we inherit a sort of a romantic and sort of a, old-fashioned conception of some things. I think classical music here in Brazil is surrounded by this sort of glamour and the sort of 19th century uh, aura around it. So when I planned to go to Amsterdam, I was my romantic idea was that music was one thing, and the conservatory would teach me to to be proficient in this one language that is music, and I went there for that, understanding I would learn this sort of universal music. But when I got there, I found out that, there are musics in plural, and the one they teach at the conservatory, it's a specific kind of music, very modern, very contemporary, atonal music. And I was very confused actually, in a way. But I discovered a lot of new things also, and a way to talk about music, a more sophisticated. But uh, emotionally, it was a very, it was a time to not trust my intuitions. It was a time
Mhm.
to use my brain, and yeah. So, but I think I
So,
killed the dragon.
so question, so what, can you play us some of your music from that time? What is it that it sounds like? Because it sounds like to me, like I said before, you were doing the mainly pop music,
Uh-huh.
that it was so connected to the guitar and the sound of that with other
Uh-huh.
people. Then what is it, can you give us an example of your music when you went to the conservatory there in Amsterdam? What was it like at that time?
Yeah, I think better than an example, I think I can try to illustrate what I learned, If I could
Okay.
tell like one thing, could point one thing, it really opened my ears to be able to appreciate some sort of sound that before I would listen to it and say, well, man, that's noise. Like for example, uh, for me,
So
it's
this
like
is this is the
flavors.
atonal music you're talking about. That's kind of
Yeah, this
abstract, they call.
exactly, because you can't find the melody, right? I mean, if I was to explain, is that when I play something like uh, this is music with the melody, right? And
Uh,
this is something we are more used to it because popular music is based on that. But if I play the same thing and I put a very very strange chord on top of it, before I didn't have the tools to kind of appreciate this sort of music, but then I created an analogy. For me, it's like flavors, and when we are children, it's like we can't tolerate like pepper or very spicy food, right? And maybe mustard and some strong flavors. But as we grow old, we start having experiences and opportunities to be able to appreciate this. And I think dissonance, in a way, it's a little bit like this. If you don't, if you're not initiated in it, it all sounds like noise. I mean, you don't like this food or this flavor. But then when you enter this universe, you start seeing that every chord has a flavor. So you start being curious of the flavors some different composers use in their cuisine. So I
mm.
discovered some atonal composers. I don't like Webern or like
And for
Messiaen. that I really like.
For sake of example, what's your favorite flavor?
Well, I really like some specific intervals. I really like this interval here. It's a tritone, but for me, it's like a raised fourth. It's very magical for me. I like these other sounds. So the combination of both. Look, I have mustard here, and I have some curry here. So now I can make a dish with both of them. And then maybe I can put some mayonnaise. Woo. Right? So you start getting
Sounds
to know
terrible.
this. Yeah, you start getting to know these friends. Intervals become friends with with their behavior and their peculiarities and the flavors, and you start liking them or not liking them. But I think this is I think what I learned, in the conservatory is be able to appreciate this different
So
flavors.
if I understand right, you in general were kind of pushed out of your comfort zone, that you were used to kind of this popular music, and then like they say always about this freshman initiation, like you're talking about, you were kind of pushed out and they're saying, okay, you can do that well. What can you do? What do you do badly? And then kind of make you think and make you kind of struggle in order to grow. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's correct, and uh, it's strange because I can, when I think about the music I wrote in that time, I don't like it very much. They were good exercises, but I don't like them. And so I think after the conservatory, the challenge, and then it became the challenge of my life as an artist. And I think this is pretty much every artist's challenge. It's kind of to merge, your experiences in one thing. In my case, in music that I can listen to, and then I can recognize my my journey in there, with all these little things you learn on your way. So it's a sort of a balance between rational understanding of music, and for example, I know that the name of this interval is a major seventh, but it's very different from to get to know this interval by ear. You know it as a friend. So it's a sort of a combination of intuition and rational understanding. So this is my challenge nowadays, and in a way, a sort of a practice where I can exercise this balance is music for film and performing arts, which I do a lot. And nowadays, it offers me like a perfect arena to get this forces to play, this intuition, popular music, and this more rational understanding of classical music.
And before moving on, I just want to make clear then, it seems to me that still this, at least your general personal experiences with the music have been based, it seems, almost exclusively on the guitar for the popular music and the voice, and then the understanding of the other music on the piano. Is that not the case?
Yeah, that's exactly the case. So
And so
now,
now your experiments and all this, then they kind of happen outside of this, like you said, with different instruments, with different things, but kind of the basis still stays the same.
it stays the same, and then it starts being fun to mix things, to try to play more more weird stuff in the guitar, and try to explore a more intuitive way in the piano, try to get like some elements from one side and put it to the other, because I think artistic creation, it has to happen in some sort of dangerous place, right? Like dangerous music, because you put yourself in as a sort of a not very comfortable zone, right? So I think, yeah.
So I wanted to say, I want to move on now to compositional processes
Right.
and how that works. And in order to get there, I'd like to show you a video of one of our other artists who came a few weeks ago, Alti Abbasi. It's a male singing quintet, and they all use microphones in order to make the effect of a band. So then they all use their voices and the microphone to imitate different instruments.
Mm-hmm.
And what they explain to us, how they make music, is by music contamination. So they take one kind of music and then they put another one, kind of run a car into the other music and see what comes out.
Wonderful.
So guys, so this is musical contamination. What tell us, what are your thoughts on this?
I love it. Yeah, that's exactly the way to go. You know, that it makes me think, you know, I studied philosophy before studying music, right? And my final paper was about precisely that, you know. It was a thesis on Hegel's aesthetics. That doesn't matter. I mean, there's a lot of complicated stuff I don't even remember.
I couldn't get past the title page.
Exactly. But the idea was that on one hand, you had this theory that music was going to go one way, like atonal, Schoenberg, there would be one language. And in my paper, I was considering another way that is a more Stravinskian way, that is to mix up things, right? Because when we think about the Rite of Spring, and if you haven't heard, please like go to Spotify and just look for it. It's like rock and roll, you know. I mean, it's unbelievable, and I really believe in that. I think this is so much prolific, and this connects also with the idea of I began playing Brazilian music, but I don't believe in that. I don't believe in Brazilian music. I don't believe in these labels, because whatever interesting happens in music, it's always outside these frontiers, you know. It's outside the comfort zone. So I love these guys like just rocking over Bach, because yeah, it's contamination. I mean, we are in this coronavirus crisis, but it has at least one good thing. That is this analogy of music. It's exactly that. One things contaminate the other. And so I really like this sort of mixture. I identify with that.
And so, so tell us now, when you're composing, when you're creating something, how does it work today?
Well, part
You
of
sit
my...
before a piece of paper, or how does it work?
Yeah, no, yeah, I think we can talk about that. There is one way, that is to sit in front of a blank sheet of paper and just have an idea, right? Sometimes ideas, they don't come, and sometimes we have a misconception of an idea, because whatever idea you have, I mean, you can be sure that it won't be original, you know. If you think it is original, it's just that you don't know somebody else's work, right? So that's not the point. The point is, for me nowadays, the key word is reaction. So I like to react to things. I like to react to music by other people, or I like to react to sounds I make. And then the thing with reaction is that it really doesn't matter where the starting point is. It matters what you do with it. And it makes me, now I just remember this guy called Khodorovsky. He's a writer, and he writes a lot about creativity. And he was telling the story that he was planning this movie, to make a movie, and he got together with the art director, and they were okay. Let's start. So he went to his library and just picked a book at random, opened a page, and said, "We're starting here." And the art director said, "Well, but why?" And the guy said, "It doesn't matter, because sometimes the starting point really doesn't matter." And by that, what I mean is, we can start anywhere. We just have to get an input so we can react to it. For example, if I put my fingers here, I just put my fingers at random, and if I do something, I can react, and I think, well, there's some good things in this chord, but it's a little bit dirty, right? I mean, you don't have a lot of definition, so maybe I can mute some strings. Wow, okay, that's good. Well, maybe that's too cozy, so maybe let's change one note. No. Whoa. Then we have something already, and this is reacting, you know. So the way I am collaborating nowadays, for example, for film music, we can play a video with an example of a recent film score I made for a short film. The director, she's a female director, Romy Pokstaruk. She's a very good friend of mine. And the way we did it is the film had no script, and she would come here, and the soundtrack was also the starting point for her film. It is a very kind of an art film, so it was very free in its script. So we started from the music and from this very reacting process. So she would come here and she would say, okay, CAIO, how can we start? And whenever I'm desperate, I have a secret weapon that is my cell phone, you know. Whenever I have an idea that I think is worthwhile, I record with the iPhone, you know. I mean, just anything. It usually sounds very bad, but I keep it. Because whenever I have a demand such as this from this director, I have a place to go, you know. So I said, just wait a minute. And then I look for, and the latest sketch was a sort of a folky tune I composed. I don't know why. I called Paris, Texas because of the movie. So I got this sort of melody. I think it was something like so for me this sounds folky, and I usually mumble some things and some English words come out like I don't even remember what I mumbled. But then I presented to her and she said, yeah, sounds nice, but we don't need a folk song. Can you make that into a gangster rap? I said, whoa, this is difficult, man. Because, you know, I'm not I mean, this is not my practice, you know, to make a hip hop. But well, it's a provocation. So I said, well, let's go midway. Why don't we make that into a gospel song? No, yeah, maybe. So then we got this text by this guy that he was writing the script. We just got the text, and we started composing these lyrics in English, trying to make a folk song that was supposed to be a gangster rap into a gospel song. So it came out something like the nuclear wars come out a bit and Dalton back today. After beat and drying. We were looking down. Can you imagine all this church like going with the plot, and, you know? So then we start imagining, and then some other, and then you start modifying the harmony or the arrangement or even the lyrics to accommodate this new idea. So this is a sort of a contamination kind of process, right?
So in general, it's very much, I mean, I get this impression just like as if you had not left your mother's Sunday serenades of Debussy or the recording studio in Los Angeles. There is this kind of laboratory feel to everything that's going on, and that you are saying, no, a little bit this way, and they're saying a little bit that way, and a little bit this way.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. This is the way I feel. And I think it would be interesting to play a little bit of the movie that is called Before Blue, because then you'll be able to see what the folk song became, right? I mean, it's way out of a folk song.
We could stop this place when we can hide. We are moving fast, like a fallen star. No bottom to this escape that we can try. Not in our time, like a fallen star. Like a fallen star, like a fallen star, like a fallen star, like a fallen star, like a fallen star.
Wow. So that is a contamination going on there.
Exactly. You know, how far is this from a folk song, you know? It's very far. And actually the lyrics tell about some atomic catastrophe, you know, with organisms eating out the microchips, you know, like a fallen star. So, you know, it really didn't matter if it began with a folk song. And so I think for me, creation is a little bit like this. And and when I think about it, I think nowadays the challenge for me is actually to trust my first idea, you know. It sounds really simple, but it's not. Because when I was younger, whenever I had a demand for music or a soundtrack or anything, I usually have a first idea immediately, you know, because whatever people demand out of you, you always connect to something you already know. So before I would have this first idea, and then I would think, well, man, no, this is too easy, you know. The solution has to come with a lot of rational thinking, and I have to go over all the possibilities, you know, and then being able to pick one. So I would procrastinate actually the moment to develop the first idea. And what I learned over the years is that I don't waste time looking for second ideas, you know. I get the first idea and I work on it. Like the folk song, it was the first idea, you know, when the director asked me if I had something. I don't know why I picked that, but it's a lot easier, you know. But it's very difficult to do because you always are kind of suspicious of your first idea, you know, because it sounds too familiar, it sounds too cliche, you know. So you're always, no, maybe I could make it more complicated, or so I think this is another part of the process. It's about reaction, but it's about also trusting your first intuition.
And this has a lot to do with also that, like you were saying, that the was it the producer or the screenplay writer, he just opened up the book and said from here, because actually all the roads lead to Rome. So you can just say, okay, we're going to start on this road now.
Exactly, and there is when I think um, about music, I think it's very important to find to get to like music. You know what I mean? What I mean is, over our life we listen to a lot of music, but there are some songs. At least I am like this. Some songs that you listen to, and you immediately feel this is something special. You know, I have to listen more, and I usually keep listening to that same track, like, you know, like crazy, over and over again. And this happens, yeah, like from time to time. And over our life, we find a small amount of these gems, you know, like musical precious gems, right? But they become like part of you. And what I went to, and I'm talking about that because my first ideas, my intuition, they are actually the fruit of these songs I heard, you know. Music culture is like this, you know, you get to know a song from one of your friends, and then you really like this, that leads to another song. And this music culture is what develops your music imagination, you know. Nobody, I mean, only Schoenberg, you know, like sits down and he has like an abstract imagination, and yeah, it's fine also. But I think we have nowadays that we have like streaming, Spotify and Apple Music. All music is available to us, and so I think that makes it more important to really research music, you know. Good music won't just materialize in front of you, you know. As an example, I can tell about I don't know if you guys know Keith Jarrett, this piano player, the jazz piano player. uh, I really like one album of his, you know, and I try to listen to the others, they're fine, but I really like this one album that is a concert, a live concert, live in Cologne. Um, I think it's from '74. So you really should check out. But
Can you play us some of what you took away from this? Can you play us
yeah,
anything to give us an
sure. I
idea?
mean, I don't want to be Keith Jarrett, like far from this, right? Because the guy is a monster. But there is the second track, right? The second track uh, is very simple, but it's I think he keeps one note going.
Lovely,
Yeah,
lovely.
I had to.
Great.
So if you check out this track, man, he just keep playing this one note and start building a whole castle around this note, you know. And this is so interesting to see how his ideas develop, you know.
Mhm.
Uh,
And this is the same what you were saying about then you just start one way. No composer ever would tell you, okay, this note, this is the right one to
yeah, yeah,
start
I
with.
think
And so you
this
start
is
with
a
one and
guy.
then go.
Exactly, and I think Keith Jarrett is interesting because what he does is he improvises a whole 1 hour concert, and you can follow the development of the starting point. You know, this is what's so interesting is that if you begin the concert, the track, and then when you realize what is happening at the end of the track, you say, "Whoa, man!" You know, he started from there and he went there. But I'm talking about Keith Jarrett because this is something this one album is something I discovered, and now it's part of me. You know, when I think about repeating a note, I think about Keith Jarrett, and
Okay.
I think about some. The track has this gospel feeling, also this kind of very American music. So for me now, repeated note is associated with kind of American music, gospel, and this is me. You know. So
Okay.
when you start thinking about that, it's very difficult not to be authentic, because you know this is the way I received Keith Jarrett. This is the way I
Sure.
got to know, and I got to know this album. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of other albums. So I think it's very important to cultivate these gems, you know, and to yeah to accumulate over your life, because uh, it really doesn't matter if you listen to a lot of music. It matters researching, you know. It's like mining, you know. You're mining these gems, right? And I think as a composer, these are my real resources, you know, because my
That's lovely, Owen.
intuitions are actually an echo, you know, echo of all these things I heard. And I think this, I mean, when I read the text you wrote for the presentation, it tells about this thing of plagiarism, you know, like copying things and not being original. and I'm completely I don't really understand that everything is a copy of things.
Of course.
But this is a sort of a cliche, you know. A lot of people say that, but my point is what we don't realize is how unique our ear and our music experience is, you know. So I think as a composer, this is my real resource. Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to ask CAIO to go over Yesterday, the song that he was writing. So as I understand, this is a Beatles song, and this is another reaction of yours.
This track is a good example of this, how dangerous it can be. And I think if my composition teachers at the conservatory would listen to it, I mean, they would really freak out. Because, oh man, they would think, oh man, this guy learned nothing, you know, at the conservatory. So the point is, this track is part of a soundtrack for a theater play. And it's a very romantic scene, but it's a sort of, it has a lot of humor also. So my challenge in this point was to compose the perfect rock ballad. You know, I mean, the most cliche rock ballad ever in the whole story. And then what I did is I started mumbling these English words. You know, these words that you find in every ballad, like for example, yesterday. Such a lonely way together. We will find a way. We will lock our signs together. Every day, every day. They will long and mine and data. We will find a way. You know. So I started just like mumbling this out nonsense words, and I composed the ballad. And I think what we can hear playing the track is I decided to keep the nonsense lyrics. So the lyrics, they don't make any sense, and they're just like a compilation of all the most cheesy words you can find. So yeah, this is in the border of copying, you know, in the border of, I don't know, I'm still waiting for Bon Jovi, you know, to prosecute me, but the letter hasn't arrived.
Yesterday, such a lonely way together. We will find a way. We will play and try together. Every day, every time we find a reason, little things we play. We will get a taste tomorrow. Every time we freeze, it is to kill me when it's why. We find a way. We'll only play. Every day, we will lock our eyes together. We will find a way. Every day we try tomorrow. Every day, tomorrow we find a reason for the days we play. We will try to rise and cure the way together. To come a day.
That's lovely. That's
The part of the lyric that I like the most is every day we try tomorrow.
Well, CAIO, thank you so much. I'd like to see how we can stay in touch with you, so everyone can start writing you and asking you questions about how you compose.
All
How can we
right,
stay
don't
in
ask
touch
me
with
difficult
CAIO?
questions.
CAIO can be contacted at www.caioamon.com or Instagram at caio.amon. EROICA Contenido. Very nice. So this is the website. I imagine, so this is kind of your your company
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
produces all of these things, eroicacontenudo.com.
Yeah.
So perfect. So it's okay, I imagine, with you that people can contact you and ask you all of these questions and find out
Sure.
how they
And
can
Simeon, I just
sue
had an
you for.
idea. And I had an idea. I created a playlist in Spotify called Dangerous Music, and I will put in this playlist all the songs we mentioned today in the conversation. You know,
Lovely.
Stravinsky, Debussy. There will be some Miles Davis. You know, dangerous music, music for, you know, that at least my little gems I would like to share with you. You know, so you just go to Spotify and look for me, CAIO AMON, and I think the playlist is already there. But if it's not, you just follow
Okay.
me in Spotify, and I'll put
Playlist.
all the tracks we mentioned in the conversation, so we can
Dangerous
share
music,
some
the
music.
playlist. Okay, that's lovely. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so very much for. Oh, there we have it. Okay, lovely.
Hmm.
So we're going to have the playlist is going to be called Dangerous Music.
Dangerous music. Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
haven't put it up, but you will put it up.
I think, yeah. I think it might be in the down there in the playlists.
It was super interesting. I mean, I really wanted to dive in also into your creative content, like all the content work you do, but I think that we would need to invite you for another time to dive into that world.
Absolutely.
All right.
Super interesting. Thank you so much for taking the time
Thank you.
all the way
Absolutely.
from
And
Brazil.
Yeah. Thank you for
absolutely.
the invitation, and thank you for all you that are watching.
That leaves me only to say thank you so much, Caillou, for enlightening us all with all of your thoughts and your experiences, bringing us into your living room, the worthy living room that you inherited from all of your musical travels. Thank you for sharing all of this with us, and we look forward to having you back at our salon again. Thanks very much to the production team, and as Caillou mentioned, thanks to all of you for joining us. Without you as our participants, then the work that we do is just not worth it. So thanks to all of you for joining us. From Porto Alegre, Brazil, from Vienna, Austria, goodbye.